If you spend any amount of time looking through YouTube, you've probably seen the Trusted House Sitters commercials over and over again. And if you have ever wondered, okay, is that for real? Can you really travel the world just by watching adorable animals and not pay for hotels? Well, that's exactly what my family does. We actually have been traveling since March of 2021 full time. And the beginning 2 years, okay, so we've been doing it for four, and the beginning two of that, we traveled all throughout the United States and parts of Canada with our motorhome. But for the last 2 years, we actually added on and have been doing more pet sitting and house sitting instead of using our motorhome because we wanted to go to other areas of the country as well as other parts of the world where it's definitely not easy to take our motorhome with us. So there are different pet sitting and house sitting platforms such as Trusted House Sitters, which is what we use, House Sitters America, there's Nomador. We're in Australia right now, we're in the Gold Coast, and we just got done with a 5-week Sydney, Australia sit, and we're getting ready to do another one in Brisbane, Australia. And we're using a combination of two different platforms. One was Aussie House Sitters, but for almost all of the other pet sits that we've done, actually all of them, we've actually used Trusted House Sitters. So this video is actually going to be talking about pet sitting as well as a review of our experience with Trusted House Sitters. All right, so the first question is, what is Trusted House Sitters? Well, it's a matchmaking platform for pet sitters as well as pet parents. So basically, it is a paid membership service. They have 3 different plans, and if you want to be both a pet sitter as well as a pet parent using the service, they have a combined service for a little bit of a discounted fee. So they've got 3 different plans, whether you're on one side or the other, a basic plan, a middle plan, as well as a premium membership. And basically, the more you pay, the more services that they offer. So I went ahead and went with the premium plan because not only can you within a year do as many pet sits and house sits as you want, but they also include 2 lounge passes at, I don't know, I think it's like 600 airports around worldwide. And then they also provide some insurance benefits just in case there's last minute cancellations from the pet parents. So there are a lot of terms and conditions to that. So maybe in a future video, I'll go over that because for us, that insurance is really, really important to have because sometimes we do line up back-to-back sits. And if one pet parent actually cancels in the middle of that, or maybe like something that's coming up really soon, it's financially, I don't want to say detrimental, but it's definitely not a good thing to think you're going to get free accommodations in exchange for taking care of someone's pets. But, you know, I really like that program is there, the insurance is there, and I'm willing to pay the extra upgraded cost for it. So first of all, pet sitting and house sitting is just really where you exchange your care for very adorable animals in exchange for the accommodations. And, you know, from a sitter standpoint, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why it makes sense. Okay, so for us, we didn't know that a system like this even existed before 2 years ago, but it's actually quite brilliant if you think about it. So if you already are a pet lover and maybe you have experienced raising pets yourself, okay, those types of folks, those types of sitters are going to be primarily chosen over someone who doesn't have experience, who's not an animal lover. Okay, and there on the Trusted House Sitters platform, there are pet sits listed around the world. Some of them are last minute. Other ones are just a few weeks or a few months away. And some full-time pet sitters actually book over a year in advance. There's all sorts of accommodations listed. So sometimes you might see apartments and condos, definitely a lot of houses, but you know, you'll even see things in rural settings like farms and mountains, beach homes. I mean, you name it. Okay, we've actually seen also like RVs, caravans, and tiny homes on there. And every once in a while, you might even see a boat, okay, a boathouse. So you just go on there and put the location down of where you would like to go, and a list of properties and pets will kind of like pop up. You can do a search function to say, hey, I'm only interested in dogs or cats or rabbits, or you might even say no pets. So there's not that many listings where it's just a house sit and not a pet sit, but there are some on there, and you can even save some of those searches so that when there are sits that come up, it'll send you an email notification, and if you've got a phone, it'll send you a phone notification. So there's all sorts of sits on there, all sorts of accommodations all over the world. I will say that where you can easily find pet sits and house sits, you're going to find a lot in Europe, okay, as well as the United States. But if you keep an eye out, you'll also be able to see places like Australia and Asia. Last year for the Christmas holiday season, we actually got a dog sit in Jeju Island, South Korea. So we've been there before, but we only stayed for a week when we were vacationing. And definitely we wanted to return and have a longer stay. So that dog sit allowed us to watch an adorable dog by the name of Frida. And we were able to stay in Jeju for 2 weeks in a beautiful part of the island. And basically the fun thing that we got to do over there was to take the dog. Actually, the dog took us for a hike. Okay, she already knew all the routes, and basically you just kind of had to like let her guide you. It was very, very fun, beautiful scenery, and it's because of that pet sit and that dog that we actually scheduled our whole Asia trip kind of like around that. And then, like I said, we made it to Australia for a 5-week pet sit this time around. And then we're just kind of hanging out different parts of Australia right now and getting ready for our next pet sit before we leave Australia. All right, so what are the pros of pet sitting? Well, number one, first and foremost, it's free accommodations in some really spectacular and sometimes very, very expensive places. So we have pets at like all over the United States. Seattle, we did one on the East Coast. And actually when we did Seattle, we did that actually a few times. When we first got involved with pet sitting, basically we lined up an entire summer before we jumped over to Asia. So my husband and I, our family, we're from Omaha, Nebraska, which is the Midwest, which is like right in the middle of the United States. So what I did was we started there. We had our destination, which was the West Coast, okay, because from the West Coast to Asia, the flights are very, very cheap. And we had to get away from, we had to find a way from the middle of the United States all the way there. So basically what I did was I booked pet sits back to back so that we could drive, let's say, 6 to 8 hours. And instead of staying in a hotel, we actually watched people's dogs and cats and plants, and would stay there for a week or two, and then we would clean up and go to the next location. Now, we were able to do a lot of them back to back if they were within driving distance, close driving distance, but every once in a while we did have to book a hotel because the pet sits wouldn't line up exactly like back to back. There might be like a day in between or something. And we used our travel bonus credit card points to be able to get those hotels. So we put together a string of pet sits back to back for, I think it lasted maybe like 2.5, 3 months up until the day we were about to like fly over to Asia. So we wanted to try it out. I needed to see if the plan worked. And yes, there were a few stresses along the way because there was a cancellation that I had in between. And in another future video, I'll go over how to minimize some of the risks when it comes to pet sitting. So we saved thousands and thousands of dollars for that summer. And it was awesome being able to drive our minivan. And then before we took off to Asia, we put the minivan in storage in Seattle. and then picked it right back up when we came back to the United States the next year. But we were able to do that, save tons of money, spend awesome time with cute, adorable animals, and we just were able to live like a local. So that's actually the second benefit, living like a local. What we ended up doing was we combined some very long pet sits, like 2-week pet sits, along with short ones because we were just kind of like driving through. And it worked out well, but what we learned is that we really like the longer pet sit because it gives you time to live like a local, go eat at local restaurants, just wander around like local towns, and you're not rushed to do any sightseeing or anything like that because you can slowly do it. Now, some of the places where we had very, very short stays, it ends up being a little bit of a pain in the butt because you've got to clean, okay, after when you're about like done and packing up. So it's not like an Airbnb where you can just kind of use it, do a few dishes and leave everything else for the homeowners to clean when they get back. I mean, I guess you could do that, but I don't think a lot of the professional pet sitters do that. Okay, I say professional because there are people where this is their lifestyle. It's not 100% fully our lifestyle because we do combine pet sitting with using our RV caravan and using cabin passes. So this is just one of the ways that we travel, but there are people who do this full time. They don't travel any other way, and it works for them, works for their lifestyle, and that is awesome. But we really, really like the slow travel because there's no rush to go out and see a bunch of things, all in like 3 days. We work and homeschool full time on the road, so we can't live like that anyway. So we love the fact that some of the pet sits are very long. So one of the other reasons why we love pet sitting so much is the amenities and accommodations, or in the accommodations. So sometimes we use hotels, and it's fine for very short stays, but we're a family of 5, and even if we were not a family of 5, hotels are great, but for us, not long term, okay? Everyone's kind of in the same room, there's no dishwasher, there's no, washer, dryer. Okay, those things that, you have in a house or an apartment, pots, pans, blenders, okay, you just don't have them. So the pet sitting is great because the homes and the pet owners will let you know what you can use. And so far we've done, maybe like 25 pet sits already within the 2-year time frame. I mean, they're so gracious. They want you to feel at home. They give you clean bedding, they give you clean towels, and pots and pans and blenders and forks and spoons, like all these things that you might not get if you're staying at a hotel. Basically, it's there for you to use. And sometimes they'll say, oh, you can use this fancy cappuccino maker, but we don't drink fancy coffee drinks. So if it's something where we're like, you know what, we wouldn't use it on an everyday basis, so we're just gonna go ahead and leave it and not touch it, sometimes we opt to do that. But certainly if there's a water kettle or microwave, obviously, as a family, we have dirty clothes that comes, that we need to wash. So it's really, really nice when those are there. And we make full use of them, of course, before we leave, okay, when the pet sit is over, we clean everything down, and if we have time, we'll even wash the bedding, okay, if we're using that bedroom or something. So last thing we want to do is to have homeowners come home from their vacation and then have to deal with our laundry from the beds that we slept in. So we do the bedding before we leave. So we haven't experienced a ton of cons when it comes to pet sitting. And in a future video, I will talk about some of the red flags that both homeowners as well as sitters should look for when trying to match up with, the right party to do this exchange. But pet sitting, it's not a free vacation, okay? So some of the previous advertisements that you may have seen will make it seem like, travel anywhere for free and, it's so great. And just they made it seem a lot more carefree than it actually is. So I'm glad they got rid of that advertising and came up with what you may see on YouTube right now or on TV. But it's not a free vacation. Basically, what you're doing is you're exchanging your time. You're exchanging care for their animals and the house. Okay, you're providing security to the house. Okay, in exchange for being able to be there. So if you are already used to, let's say, a good set schedule and have taken care of pets before, and you know that dogs need to be let out like first thing in the morning, they need to be taken for walks, they need playtime. Okay, this is not a service where you're just going to want to give a bowl of water and give, a bowl of food, once or twice a day. And it's not that. Okay. The pet parents are counting on the pet sitters to not only be responsible, but to also provide interaction, okay, with the animals, to cuddle with them, to pet them. And some of them will even list under the responsibility section that, the animals get to sleep with you. If you've never had an animal sleep with you or you're not okay with that, okay, you've got to make sure you discuss this during your application process. So it's definitely not a free vacation. And number two is that, the competition might be really, really high for high tourist spots. So for example, if you're trying to get to London or New York or, some places in California, definitely the overseas sits in Asia. Okay. They go in the blink of an eye. You won't even know that those listings came up because by the time you get an email notification saying, hey, a pet sit just became available in Asia. Okay. It's gone. Okay. It's gone because what happens with trusted pet sitters is that or trusted house sitters is that the system will take up to 5 applicants and then it'll just take it off the market. Okay. So basically, if you're not one of the 5 applicants that put your application through, you won't even see that listing anymore. So it is a little bit, of a tiresome process if you're trying to get to high tourist spots. If you are new to the system and you don't have reviews, you're not going to get selected. Okay. If someone is looking for a solo female or maybe a mature couple and you're, let's say like a family like me, okay, with 3 kids and okay, so a total of 5, okay, we're not going to get those sits. So basically you have to be matched up with homeowners and pet parents who are looking for someone like you with your profile. So a lot of the house sits that we've done are from, let's say like other families, okay, where they're also used to having like kids. It's like they have kids, we have kids, so they invite us in. And we have been invited to pet sits from people who are single. Okay, obviously, some of them are young, so they don't have children yet. And basically, they have accepted us and sent us a confirmation to sit for them because they think we are safe and responsible, which we are, okay? And they actually would prefer a family would come in and just give their pets just as much fun as that they could possibly get. So definitely there is a pet sitter and a pet parent for everyone. You just have to get enough applicants and send in enough applications to be matched up. And one of the other things that might be a little bit of a drawback is that it's not always glamorous. Okay. So for example, let's say you get an awesome location, high tourist spot, and once you get there, there may be more responsibilities than you're willing to deal with. Okay. And maybe you didn't know that up front because you didn't know to ask the right questions, or maybe the pet parent just like forgot to tell you something. If you're dealing with animals who have medical conditions, okay, you might have to time your entire day around that medical condition. Sometimes there's drawbacks with animals having different pet behaviors for the sitters versus how they behave for their pet parents. So these pets, they're just like kids, okay? I mean, kids can act one way towards their parents, but then when they come across across strangers and friends and other relatives, they might act a whole different way. So some of the pet behaviors that the homeowners will tell you that, okay, this dog will do this cat will do that, they'll sleep throughout the night. They might not do that for you, okay? And one of the big no-nos once you go on these confirmed pet sits is that you can't abandon the animals. Okay, why would you want to do that anyways? Okay, sometimes you see on the Trusted House Sitter forum that people do have to leave during the middle of it for various reasons, but as long as nothing's an emergency, okay, as long as nothing's crazy's going on, okay, you have to stay there for the duration of that sit. And, you know, let's say you took a 3-week sit or a 1-month sit and you thought it was going to be like great and relaxing and easy, and it turns out to be nothing but stress and pain, and you're dealing with maybe a homeowner who is not super great to you. You're just kind of stuck there for a while until the pet sit ends. So definitely there are some drawbacks. Now there are ways to notice red flags to minimize this. So make sure you hit the subscribe button and tap that notification bell, because I will be doing future videos on that. But yeah, so not always glamorous, okay, not always flexible. Sometimes very, very competitive, depending on what area of the world and what area of the country you're trying to get a pet sit in. But for us, it has worked really well, beautifully. And honestly speaking, now that we have enjoyed this lifestyle and know what it takes to do this on a long-term basis, I think my husband and I, we are talking about including this as part of our retirement plan. So sometimes it seems like we're retired right now because we're traveling the world anyways, but it's definitely not that. Okay, instead of sleeping, my husband is over there trip planning in the gym because our Airbnb does not have air conditioning and it's the middle of summer over here in Australia right now. So you know, it's just that's another story. But anyways, he's over there trip planning. So if you've ever wondered if pet sitting and house sitting is for you and you want to try Trusted House Sitters out, I'll leave a link in the description box for a referral where you will get a discount to one of their membership plans that you choose. So once you sign up, basically you'll have access to their platform. You're going to want to create a strong profile, and maybe you don't have reviews right away because you don't have pet sits lined up, but the first thing you're going to want to do is to get references. You can send email links out for reference letters to however many people you want. And then once they fill that out, basically it will show under your profile. So that is the best way to get started, because if you are new to the system, okay, pet parents, they're inviting strangers into their homes, okay, to take care of their princes and princesses and, you know, their fur babies. And they only want the best people to come in that they feel like that they can trust. Okay, hence Trusted House Sitters. So the best way to do that is to make sure you look good on the platform through your profile, get as many external references as possible. And even if you think you might want to go to a high tourist spot maybe later on down the line, you're going to want to build some real reviews. And the best way to do that is to apply for maybe last minute sits locally, something where you can drive to the location, get that pet sit done, and have a great 5-star review filled out for you from that pet parent. And if you can line up maybe like 2 or 3 of those to get started, that is my most recommended path to get started pet sitting. And then after that, if you want to start applying for pet sits around the country or around the world, you certainly can apply to as many as you want. You don't have to apply for like one at a time like some people think. So you just apply for as many as you want, and when you get one confirmed, basically that blocks out your dates. You cannot have overlapping sits. So if you love animals and you love to travel and you love saving money, okay, pet sitting might be perfect for you. This video is going to be put into the pet and house sitting playlist, and I've got a lot more videos coming up that will go over pros and cons of pet sitting, red flags to look for, how to get your first pet sit, as well as how to go internationally, how to line up back-to-back pet sits. So I'm going to be covering a lot, so make sure you subscribe. If you were to set up your first pet sit, where do you think you would like to go? Leave it in the comments.